Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about the state of the overall crypto market, just because we've seen a lot of crazy and weird stuff happening lately. I think we've seen some pumps that maybe were a little bit unexpected. We've seen some dumps that are a little bit unexpected. There's just a lot going on, and so I want to talk a little bit about kind of why we might be seeing this, what this might be looking similar to, and what we really need to be waiting for until we get too crazy about anything. Because right now, I think a lot of people are just getting chopped up trying to wait for the next play, and I think there's a reason for this, and so we're going to go through all of that. But starting out, what we are going to be taking a look at is the crypto bubbles. What we can see, pretty mixed day in the market. It is green, but I think this is mainly on the back of the Virtuals protocol. We made a video about this a couple days ago. Virtuals has been looking really strong for the past probably 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. It's been really pretty much bulletproof. If we do look at the chart, I mean, look at this. This is just the day. If we look at the month, I mean, basically like up only, really doing some pretty crazy numbers. And so we'll probably be talking about this one a little bit more on the channel just because of what it's doing and the things that it's delivering are quite impressive. And I do think the price appreciation that we've seen here is probably warranted. And so, but overall, kind of going back to the overall market, we can see kind of Virtuals leading the way up, Pengu leading the way down. Pengu's been incredibly volatile over the past couple of weeks, which I guess makes kind of sense. It's a pretty big meme coin overall based on the pudgy penguins. So it does make sense there. But what we can see, green day overall, red week overall though. However, we can see, a couple greens here and there, and we actually are seeing more greens starting to enter into the crypto bubbles on the weekly, but we are still kind of more red than green overall. And so I think this is a pretty good representation of the market that we're sitting in right now. Lots of movement in all sorts of different directions. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. So moving on, we're just going to look at Bitcoin specifically because Bitcoin's, again, still kind of leading the market until we start to see the Bitcoin dominance start to kind of pull back and subside a little bit. I think Bitcoin's going to be leading the way. We might be taking a look at a couple others, but Bitcoin, I think, is showing a pretty decent representation of what the market is seeing overall right now. And so if we look, we'll pull this full screen so it's easier to see. But what we can see is kind of, I would call this max level. We're obviously looking at all-time highs, max low level, which we haven't actually seen since the middle of November. So we basically haven't seen these numbers in the past 6 weeks, but this I would say is probably kind of more towards the max low number. So we got max low at about 85, max high at about 108. But what we can see is kind of in this 94 to 91.5 range. This has been a pretty strong liquidity zone. We can see it all over the place. We got wicks down, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down. Candles, couple candles in here, wicks up, wicks up, wicks up, wicks up, wicks up, wicks up, wicks up. And then again over here, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down, wicks down. So tons of liquidity. But as we can see, other than these just couple of candles, we got 3 here and 3 here, it's basically only been wicks, which means this is a pretty strong buy and sell zone. Recently, it's been a really strong buy zone, but prior to it was a pretty strong sell zone kind of prior to that, right? And so this is kind of what we're seeing is a major level of liquidity. You can see we have dropped into it. If we do actually pull out of it, again, we would see another wick, but if we kind of stay into it, this would be the first time that we actually have seen candles in this liquidity zone since back in the end of November. And so could be a little bit concerning. Overall, I'm not super worried. I do think we'll probably hold this low 91,500 level. If we don't, we probably do head back to this 85, and then from there, potentially down to 77 range. But also we could find a level in here. I know we've seen people talking about kind of 82 being a target as well. So maybe we see that. Overall though, we are seeing some decent strength that should be respected at least within this 91 to 94 range. We also can see a pretty small liquidity zone. Again, I think this makes a lot of sense, right? Between 99.5 and 98.9. So this is a lot of this is kind of the 100,000 wall is what I want to call it, just because going up to it, we've seen wicks into it and also wicks down into it, both once we've been holding above 100,000, but then also when we've held kind of below 100,000, we've been rejected. We can see recently we've been rejected multiple times kind of at this liquidity wall. We could see we actually peaked a little bit above it, just again not even quite getting to 100,000, very close, but then getting rejected again. So 100,000 is still kind of remaining that pretty big wall of liquidity that we have been seeing and kind of all throughout, either both above and below. And so that's kind of what we're seeing on Bitcoin. We'll take a quick look at Solana just because we did take a look at Solana the other day. We can see something similar from Solana. We are kind of sitting down at this lower liquidity level. We do have kind of that upper liquidity level between like 211 and like 228. But right now we kind of are sitting in that lower liquidity level. We have seen candles in this. So I would say this is so far been a pretty strong level of liquidity. But if we do not hold this, we probably see a move back down to like the 160 range. What we're seeing right here is obviously some pretty nice pullbacks from the run up that we saw in November, but there's a lot of concern that maybe it continues to bleed and run lower, which it could. But overall, long term, we need to remember that this crypto market, unless it's a really, really short bull run, it's probably going to see a level of recovery. We've seen these types of pullbacks happen before in prior crypto markets and in prior crypto bull runs. And so that I think there's a lot of there's a lot of reason to be optimistic with some of these pullbacks if you are still kind of like bullish and expecting to see a bounce at some point. Again, right now, given the volatility that we are seeing, again, I don't know for sure where we bottom out. I'm fairly confident that we bottom and then see a kind of a bounce back to the upside. Where that is, I don't know. And so because of that, I am going to be adding to my spot bags, but doing very, very minimal leverage trading, if any at all, right now, just because of the volatility that we are seeing. Once we can kind of get a pretty decent direction on the market, obviously, we can start using the leverage trading to come back into it. But right now, still just trying to be a little bit careful there. However, if you are looking to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Sui, Cardano, any of those for that matter, feel free to use my link in the description below. I am still working with BTCC for the month. They've got really, really great deposit offers and whatnot. So they've got their standard deposit bonuses of up to $10,055 per user. But also, if you use my link in the description below, since I am working with them for the month, they are also doing the 10% bonus on first-time deposits, which is a really, really awesome deal. This is basically guaranteed. So let's say if you were to deposit $10,000, you would get essentially $1,000 extra dollars to trade with and do all that sort of stuff. So really, really awesome deal if you do ask me. They also have been around for over 13 years. So this is, their fifth or sixth cycle at this point. I think fifth, if I'm doing my math correctly. But also they're not one of those here today, gone tomorrow type of exchanges. They've been around, they've got the track record to show that. And so you don't really need to worry about that. Unfortunately is quite the problem, particularly when we see these crypto bull runs come back. Also, they have 300 plus crypto futures. So basically if there's anything you want to trade, they probably have it. You can also do up to 500x leverage. 500x leverage I would strongly discourage just because it's so risky. I mean, really anything above 10 to 20x, you really should be highly advanced in leverage trading and understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And realistically, leverage trading at all, you should understand the risks, and it is very risky, so you should know what you're doing. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary. So if that is something you're interested in, they also have that available for you as well. So like I said, if you are interested in looking for a new place to trade, or even just want a second or third exchange just to kind of diversify a little bit, feel free to use my link in the description below, and you can get that 10% bonus on your first time deposits. Now, I did want to take a look at that market overview dashboard, basically just kind of give a sense of where we're looking at with kind of some of the other non-price metrics within the market. We can see open interest, again, pulling back a little bit, but staying up at these all-time high levels, looking really, really nice, at least from the Bitcoin perspective. The total market to open interest has dipped back a little bit, but I think this does kind of make sense given the prices and the price action that we've seen. If we look at the RSI heat map, we did see a jump back into neutral from kind of the majority. We are actually seeing, though, more starting to kind of move down into the weak territory. The market average, though, is on the low end of neutral. So the majority of the market's still sitting in neutral overall. I think this makes sense. I mean, we're seeing a lot of things kind of in this neutral. The market's kind of reset, but again, we're seeing a ton of volatility. And when we are seeing neutral RSI, I mean, I get that kind of makes sense, right? There's just kind of chopping around, not really a clear direction one way or the other, not overly bearish, not overly bullish. Right now, I think we're seeing an overly bearish sentiment just because we're on the back of some of these ridiculous gains that we saw over the past 2 months or so. And so I think the bullish or the bearishness isn't actually from the objective data in the market. It's just kind of like the hangover of all the gains that we've seen from some ridiculous gains in the past 2 months, of course. So what we can see is we are still in greed. We've pulled out of extreme greed. I did think it was possible that we'd get back to neutral. It's not looking like that's going to happen, at least at this point in time. There is always the possibility that we could see a further dump, but right now we are kind of just sitting in greed. Also on the exchange liquidation map, we can see a bit of a favoring to the moving to the upside, liquidating shorts on the 1 day, and then on the 7 day, we're going to see something similar, of favoring a move to the upside, liquidating shorts. We can see some pretty steep walls kind of at the 97 like 97,800 range, and then like the 100,000 range. So those are kind of the two big walls to the upside, the big walls to the downside being kind of around like 91.5, 92,000. So that's kind of what we're seeing on our market overview. Moving on, I want to take a super quick look at liquidations, because what we are seeing with liquidations, at least in my opinion, we're seeing people just get kind of chopped up. I mean, obviously we've seen far greater numbers than this in the recent past, but given the like price action, or I guess lack thereof, that we've seen, these are really, really high numbers of people getting liquidated. We can see more longs getting liquidated than shorts, but overall, I mean, this number has been consistent in probably the 200 to 400 million, I would say, for about the past week or so. And so these are people just essentially getting chopped up in the volatility. And this always will happen when we start to see these periods of volatility to essentially liquidate all of this type of leverage. There's obviously always going to be these leverage traders. You know, the second that we see Bitcoin bounce a little bit, they're going to be taking 500x longs. And then of course, you know, we see a very minor move to the downside, and then they all get liquidated. And so that's a lot of, I think, what we're going to be seeing there. We can see in the past 24 hours, 90,000 traders were liquidated. Total liquidations come at 241. The largest single liquidation order happened on BitMEX for $3 million. So insane liquidation orders, which is just crazy. But overall, I mean, this is essentially a function or a feature of people just getting chopped up in the volatility. We can see on the liquidation heat map, we're seeing massive walls of liquidation down at like the 78 to like 76 range, and pretty decent walls up here at the like 117 to like 115 range. Prior to that, though, or before kind of those major walls, we're not really seeing too many walls. Obviously, we're seeing the like expected walls that you would kind of imagine seeing at all-time highs here at about 108. And then we're seeing, you know, a little bit of a wall here at 100,000, which is kind of like the range highs. And then we're starting to see some walls here down at, you know, between like 92.5 and like 89.5, basically. But overall, you know, nothing like really super clear. I mean, obviously we can see kind of the bottom and the top of the range, but from here, I mean, we're just going to kind of be moving around like we've seen over the past several days. I mean, obviously, even after we kind of reached up at new all-time highs, kind of back breaking over 100 right up in here, we can see, you know, we break 100, come all the way to have a massive wick down to 90, come back up to 102, go back down to 94-ish, go all the way up to 108, come right back down to 92. I mean, this is all just basically liquidating people one side. We can see right here, tons of liquidations hit here. Liquidations hit here, liquidations hit all through here, and then all through here. Same type of thing. We can see liquidations hit up here, down here. This is just kind of the market moving, liquidating people on its merry way. This is the type of thing where you're not really seeing a clear direction in the market. It's just meant to essentially try and like clear out some of that extra liquidity. When the market does get super frothy like this, this is usually what happens, right? We kind of clear people out. People get bearish, they get pessimistic, they go away, and then ultimately we see the next leg up, and then they come start trading like crazy, get liquidated. All of this, you know, rinse and repeat. It's the cycle. It happens. You know, obviously it's kind of dirty business, but it is what it is. And if you're paying attention and you're here the whole time, you understand this, and you are able to profit off of what we know is going to happen in the long term. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe, because it really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, whatever, just feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see, that would be a pretty good way to do so. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.